The email from the city council arrived on a Tuesday morning, and Aria Sawyer knew immediately that everything was about to change. She sat in her modest office above her family's bookstore, staring at the screen with her heart pounding against her ribs. The old Morrison building, the one her family had been trying to acquire for 5 years, was finally going up for bid. Her father had dreamed of expanding their bookstore into that space, creating something special, a literary hub for the community with reading rooms and event spaces, and a cafe that smelled like coffee and possibility. He had died 2 years ago without seeing that dream realized, and Aria had promised herself she would make it happen. The deadline for proposals was in 6 weeks. She had exactly that long to put together a business plan that would convince the council her family's vision was worth choosing. It should have felt exciting, but instead, a knot of anxiety twisted in her stomach. Competition for prime real estate in downtown Portland was fierce, and the Sawyer family bookstore was hardly a financial powerhouse compared to the corporate chains that might be interested. Still, she had to try. For her father, for herself, for the customers who came in every day and treated their bookstore like a second home. Aria printed the requirements and spent the rest of the day sketching out ideas, her dark hair falling into her eyes as she hunched over her desk. By evening, her back ached and her coffee had gone cold, but she had the beginnings of something good. Something that honored what her father had wanted while also being practical enough to actually work. She was locking up the store when she noticed the man across the street. He stood in front of the Morrison building with his hands in the pockets of an expensive coat, his tall frame silhouetted against the evening light. Even from a distance, Aria could tell he was out of place in this neighborhood. Everything about him spoke of money and power, from his perfectly styled dark hair to the way he carried himself with absolute confidence. He was studying the building with an intensity that made her stomach drop. Please let him just be a tourist, she thought. Please let him be anyone except another bidder. But the universe rarely granted wishes that convenient. The next morning, Aria went to the council office to get more information about the bidding process. The clerk, a friendly woman named Margaret who had known her father, leaned across the counter conspiratorially. "I probably should not tell you this," Margaret said in a low voice, "but you have some serious competition. Zachary Oakes just filed his intent to bid yesterday." Aria felt her blood run cold. "Zachary Oakes, the Zachary Oakes," Margaret nodded grimly. "The one and only. Everyone in Portland knew that name." Zachary Oakes had built an empire in the hospitality industry, transforming old buildings into boutique hotels and upscale restaurants that attracted tourists and locals alike. At 32, he was a millionaire several times over, known for his sharp business sense and his ability to see potential where others saw only decay. He was also known for being ruthlessly competitive and almost always getting what he wanted. Aria's little family bookstore did not stand a chance against him. What could he possibly want with the Morrison building? She asked, though she already knew the answer. It was prime real estate, and Zachary Oakes had made his fortune by recognizing exactly that kind of opportunity. "Rumor is he wants to put in one of his boutique hotels," Margaret said. "You know how he works. He will make it gorgeous and expensive and completely transform the block." Aria thanked Margaret and walked out into the gray morning feeling like she had been punched in the gut. 6 weeks ago, she had felt like this was finally her chance. Now it seemed like a foregone conclusion. How could she compete with someone like Zachary Oakes? But giving up was not in her nature. Her father had taught her that. She threw herself into the proposal with everything she had. She reached out to architects and designers who had worked with her father, people who understood his vision, and were willing to offer their services at reduced rates because they believed in the project. She crunched numbers until her eyes crossed, finding ways to make the budget work without sacrificing quality. She gathered letters of support from regular customers, from other small business owners in the neighborhood, from the elementary school teacher who brought her class in for story time every month. 3 weeks into the process, she was at the Morrison building taking measurements when she heard footsteps behind her. "You must be Aria Sawyer." The voice was deep and smooth, with an edge of amusement that immediately set her on edge. She turned to find herself face to face with Zachary Oakes. Up close, he was even more imposing than she had expected. He was easily 6 feet tall, with broad shoulders and the kind of presence that filled a room. His eyes were a striking gray-blue, sharp and assessing as they studied her. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her monthly revenue, and he looked every inch the successful CEO he was. He was also, inconveniently, one of the most attractive men she had ever seen. Aria pushed that thought away immediately. "And you must be the competition." His lips quirked in what might have been the beginning of a smile. "I prefer to think of myself as the inevitable conclusion, but competition works too." The arrogance should have been off-putting. It was off-putting. But there was something about the way he said it, with a hint of self-awareness that kept it from being completely obnoxious. "What are you doing here?" she asked, crossing her arms. "Same thing you are, I imagine, getting a feel for the space." He walked past her, his expensive shoes echoing on the old wooden floors, and looked around with an expert eye. "It has good bones. High ceilings, natural light, original architectural details. With the right renovation, it could be spectacular." "It is already spectacular," Aria said. "It does not need to be turned into some generic luxury hotel." Now he did smile, and it transformed his face from merely handsome to genuinely stunning. "I do not do generic, Miss Sawyer. That is rather the point. You know what I mean. This neighborhood does not need another place for rich tourists. It needs something for the people who actually live here. Like a bookstore." He turned to face her fully, and there was something challenging in his gaze. "How many bookstores in buildings like this have you seen survive in the current economy? You are fighting a losing battle against online retail and changing consumer habits." "Maybe," Aria said, lifting her chin, "but at least I am fighting for something that matters." "What do you care about besides profit margins?" She expected him to get angry, but instead he looked almost intrigued. "You do not know anything about me." "I know enough. I know you buy historic buildings and turn them into playgrounds for people who can afford $300 dinners. I know you probably have not set foot in an actual bookstore in years." "You would be wrong about that," Zachary said mildly. "I was in one last week, as a matter of fact. Let me guess, some trendy concept store that sells more artisanal coffee than actual books. Your store, actually." That stopped her cold. "What?" "I wanted to see what I was up against. You have a nice operation. Cozy, well-curated, clearly loved by your customers. It is just not enough to win this bid, and we both know it." He checked his watch, a sleek silver thing that probably cost more than her car. "I should go. I have a meeting downtown, but I will see you around, Miss Sawyer. This is a small city, after all." He was gone before she could form a response, leaving her standing in the empty building with her heart racing and her cheeks flushed with anger and something else she did not want to examine too closely. Over the next 2 weeks, she kept running into him. At the coffee shop near the council building, where she was picking up copies of zoning documents, and he was meeting with what looked like a team of lawyers. At the Historical Society, where she was researching the Morrison building's past, and he was apparently doing the same. At a city planning meeting, she attended to better understand the approval process. Each encounter was brief, professional, and left her feeling off balance in a way she could not quite explain. He was never rude, never dismissive, but there was always that edge of confidence, that certainty that he would win. It drove her crazy. What drove her even crazier was that she found herself noticing things about him. The way he listened intently when other people spoke, even when it was clear he disagreed with them. The way he treated service workers with the same respect he showed to city officials. The way his whole face changed when he smiled, which was less often than she would have expected from someone so successful. She told herself it did not matter. He was the enemy, the obstacle standing between her and her father's dream. Finding him attractive or interesting or anything else was just a distraction. With 1 week left before the deadline, Aria was working late at the bookstore when someone knocked on the door. She looked up from her laptop, surprised. It was nearly 10 o'clock and the closed sign had been up for hours. Through the glass door, she could see Zachary Oakes. For a moment, she considered ignoring him, but curiosity won out. She unlocked the door and opened it just enough to lean out. "We are closed." "I know. I wanted to talk to you." He held up a bag from the Thai restaurant down the street. "Have you eaten? You look like you have not eaten." "I am fine," she said automatically, though her stomach chose that moment to growl loudly, betraying her. "Let me in, Aria. 5 minutes. If you still want me to leave after that, I will go." She should have said no. Instead, she found herself stepping back and letting him in, telling herself it was only because she was tired and hungry and could not resist the smell of pad thai. They sat at one of the small tables in the reading nook, the bookstore quiet and dim around them. Zachary opened containers of food with the ease of someone used to working dinners, and they ate in silence for a few minutes. "Why are you here?" Aria finally asked. "I wanted to understand something," Zachary said, setting down his fork. "This proposal means everything to you. Why? It is not just about business for you." She could have deflected, but she was too tired to maintain her walls. "My father wanted to expand. He spent years planning it, dreaming about what this place could become. He died before he could make it happen. This is my chance to finish what he started." Zachary was quiet for a moment. "I lost my father too," he said finally. 3 years ago, heart attack. He was a contractor, worked with his hands his whole life. He taught me to see the potential in old things, to respect the bones of a building even when you are changing its skin." Aria looked at him, seeing something in his face she had not noticed before. A softness, a vulnerability that did not fit with the ruthless businessman image. "I am sorry, so am I, about yours." He met her eyes and something passed between them, an understanding that went beyond words. "For what it is worth, I have read your proposal." "How did you see my proposal?" "I have not technically, but I know what you are going for. I have done my research." He paused. "It is good, really good. If this were just about the quality of the vision, you would probably win." "But it is not," Aria said flatly. "No, it is about money and risk mitigation and track records. It is about convincing the council that their investment will pay off, and in that arena I have every advantage." He leaned back in his chair, studying her. "I could help you." "What?" "Let me consult on your proposal. Help you strengthen the financial projections, make it more compelling to the council. Level the playing field a little." Aria stared at him. "Why would you do that? We are competing against each other." "Maybe I want the competition to actually be fair. Maybe I am curious to see what you can do with the right support." He smiled slightly. "Or maybe I just find you interesting." Her heart did something complicated in her chest. "I do not need your charity." "It is not charity. It is a consultant offering his expertise. You can take it or leave it." She should have refused on principle. But the practical part of her, the part that wanted to win, could not ignore the opportunity. What do you get out of it? The satisfaction of winning against your actual best effort, not just the hand you have been dealt. He stood, gathering the empty food containers. Think about it. You know where to find me. After he left, Aria sat in the quiet bookstore for a long time, trying to understand what had just happened and why her hands were shaking. She did not contact him for 3 days, wrestling with her pride and her pragmatism. Finally, with 4 days left before the deadline, she sent him an email. Short, professional, agreeing to meet. They worked together at a coffee shop neutral territory, neither his office nor her bookstore. He went through her financial projections with a critical eye, asking questions she had not thought to ask herself, pointing out weaknesses and helping her shore them up. He was demanding and direct, never sugarcoating his criticisms, but he was also patient and genuinely interested in making her proposal stronger. "You are underestimating your revenue potential from events," he said, tapping the spreadsheet on her laptop. "If you market this right, you could be hosting corporate retreats, writing workshops, book clubs with guest authors. That is where the real money is, not just retail sales." "That feels like selling out," Aria said. "That is called running a sustainable business. You can love books and still pay your bills." He looked at her seriously. "Your father's dream deserves to survive long term, not just for a year or two before you run out of money." He was right, and she knew it. She made the changes, adding projected revenue streams she had been too idealistic to consider before. They worked late into the evening, and somewhere around 9 o'clock, Aria found herself laughing at something Zachary said, some dry observation about bureaucratic paperwork. His eyes lit up when she laughed, and she realized he had been trying to make her laugh, trying to ease the tension that had been building as the deadline approached. "Why are you being so nice to me?" she asked suddenly. Zachary looked at her for a long moment. "Honestly, I am not entirely sure. This goes against every business instinct I have. But there is something about you, about your passion for this project. It makes me want to see you succeed, even if it is against me." "That makes no sense." "I know." He smiled, and it was warm and genuine and made her stomach flutter. "But here we are." She submitted her proposal 30 minutes before the deadline, polished and professional, and so much stronger than it would have been without his help. Zachary submitted his at the same time. Then there was nothing to do but wait for the council's decision, which would take 2 weeks. Those 2 weeks were strange. Without the proposal to focus on, Aria found herself at loose ends, and Zachary kept appearing in her life. He stopped by the bookstore, ostensibly to browse, but always ending up at the counter talking to her about books he had loved or restaurants he thought she should try. He invited her to coffee, and she told herself it was just networking, just getting to know the competition. He showed up at a neighborhood cleanup event she was participating in, dressed in jeans and a faded t-shirt that made him look younger and more approachable, and worked alongside her picking up trash and replanting the community garden. "I did not take you for the community service type," Aria said, watching him dig a hole for a rosebush with more enthusiasm than skill. "I grew up 3 blocks from here," Zachary said, not looking up from his work. "Before my hotels and my reputation, I was just a kid from this neighborhood. I have not forgotten that, even if people think I have." Every conversation revealed another layer, another facet of him that did not fit with the ruthless CEO image. He was driven and ambitious, yes, but he was also thoughtful and surprisingly kind. He remembered the names of everyone he met. He left generous tips. He talked about his work with genuine passion, not just as a means to make money, but as a way to create beautiful spaces that brought people joy. Aria was in trouble, and she knew it. One evening, A week into the waiting period, Zachary asked her to dinner. Not coffee, not a working meeting, but actual dinner at one of his restaurants. Aria knew she should say no, knew she was crossing a line from professional rivalry into something more dangerous. But she said yes anyway, because she wanted to, because the thought of spending an evening with him made her heart race in the best way. The restaurant was beautiful, all exposed brick and soft lighting and the kind of carefully curated atmosphere that made you feel like you were somewhere special. They sat at a corner table, and Zachary ordered wine with the ease of someone who knew exactly what would pair well with their meal. "This place is gorgeous," Aria said, looking around. "Thank you. It was my first major project in Portland. An old warehouse that everyone said was too far gone to save." He smiled at the memory. "My business partners thought I was crazy, but I could see what it could be. You have a gift for that, seeing potential. So do you. Your proposal, the vision you have for the Morrison building, it is beautiful. Even if I win the bid, I hope you find another space to make it happen." "Why do you assume you will win?" Aria asked, only half teasing. "Because I usually do," Zachary said simply. "But for the first time in a long time, I am not sure I want to, and I do not know what to do with that feeling." The air between them felt charged, full of something unspoken. Aria took a sip of wine, trying to steady herself. "We should not be doing this. Probably not. We are competitors. This is a conflict of interest or something like that. Definitely something like that." He leaned forward slightly, his eyes intent on hers. "But I cannot seem to care as much as I should. These past few weeks, getting to know you, it has been the best part of my year. Maybe the best part of several years. Zachary, I know, bad timing, bad situation, but I am tired of pretending this is just about business." He reached across the table, and after a moment's hesitation, Aria put her hand in his. His palm was warm and solid against hers, and the simple touch sent electricity up her arm. "Whatever happens with the bid, I want to keep seeing you. I want to take you to dinner and make you laugh and learn everything about you, if you want that too." Aria's throat felt tight. "What if I win the bid? Will you resent me?" "No. I will be disappointed for myself, but I will be genuinely happy for you. I have enough money and enough projects. Losing one bid will not ruin me." His thumb traced circles on the back of her hand. "But losing the chance to be with you might." It was the most romantic thing anyone had ever said to her, and it was coming from the man who was supposed to be her rival. The absurdity of it made her laugh, and then she was crying a little too, overwhelmed by the emotion of the past few weeks. "I am a mess," she said, wiping at her eyes with her free hand. "You are perfect," Zachary said simply. "Say yes, Aria, say yes to giving this a chance." "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, okay, yes." He smiled like she had given him the world, and when he kissed her hand, she felt it all the way to her toes. They left the restaurant and walked through the city, talking about everything and nothing. He told her about growing up in Portland, about his mother who still lived in the neighborhood and called him every Sunday to make sure he was eating properly. She told him about her father's bookstore, about learning to love reading in the aisles between fantasy and mystery, about the day he died, and how she had promised herself she would make him proud. "He would be proud," Zachary said. "Anyone can see how much heart you put into everything you do." They ended up back at the bookstore, and Aria unlocked the door without thinking about it, leading him inside. The space felt different at night, more intimate somehow. Zachary wandered between the shelves, pulling out books and reading the back covers, occasionally holding one up to show her with a questioning look. "You should get this one," Aria said when he showed her a thriller. "The ending will destroy you in the best way." He bought it, insisting on paying full price even though she offered the employee discount. and they sat in the reading nook talking until midnight. When he finally kissed her properly, with her back against the bookshelf and his hands gentle on her face, it felt like coming home and setting off on an adventure all at once. The council announced their decision on a Thursday afternoon. Aria was at the bookstore, restocking the children's section, when her phone rang. "Miss Sawyer, this is Margaret from the City Council. I wanted to let you know before the official announcement goes out tomorrow." Aria's heart was pounding so hard she could barely hear. "Yes. The council has reviewed all the proposals, and we have made our decision. I am pleased to inform you that your proposal has been selected for the Morrison building project." For a moment, Aria could not process the words. "I am sorry, what? You won, honey. Your bookstore expansion is going to happen." Aria sat down hard on the floor, tears streaming down her face. "Are you serious? This is not a joke, not a joke. Your proposal was compelling, financially sound, and exactly what this neighborhood needs. The council voted unanimously in your favor." Margaret paused. "Mr. Oakes withdrew his proposal yesterday afternoon. He said he had decided to pursue other opportunities." After she hung up, Aria sat on the floor of the children's section for a long time, crying and laughing and trying to believe it was real. Then she called Zachary. "Did you know?" she demanded as soon as he answered. "Did you know you were going to withdraw?" "Hello to you too," he said, and she could hear the smile in his voice. "Zachary, answer me." "Yes, I knew. I have been planning it for about a week." "Why, this was a huge project for you. You wanted this building." "I wanted you more," he said simply. "And I realized that I could have the building or I could have you, but I could not have both. Not really. Not without it always being between us, this thing where one of us won and the other lost. So I chose you." "You cannot just give up a major project for someone you have known for a few weeks," Aria said, but her voice was shaking. "I can, actually. I am a millionaire, remember? I have more opportunities than I know what to do with. But there is only one you." He paused. "Are you angry?" "I do not know what I am," Aria admitted. "I wanted to win on my own merit." "You did. My withdrawal did not change the quality of your proposal. It just took my competing proposal out of the running. The council still had other bidders to choose from, and they chose you because your vision was the best." She thought about that. "You really withdrew from me." "I really did. No regrets. You are insane, probably, but I am insane about you, so it balances out." His voice softened. "Congratulations, Aria. You are going to do amazing things with that space. Your father would be so proud." That made her start crying again, happy tears this time. "Thank you for everything, for helping me, for believing in me, for being ridiculous and romantic and perfect. Have dinner with me tonight. Let me take you somewhere special to celebrate." "Your place," Aria said impulsively. "I want to see where you live. I want to just be with you without half the city watching." There was a long pause. "Are you sure?" "Very sure." Zachary's penthouse was in one of the renovated buildings downtown, with floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the city. It was beautifully decorated but somehow still felt lived in, with books scattered on the coffee table and a blanket thrown over the back of the couch. "This is not what I expected," Aria said, taking in the cozy space. "What did you expect? A cold minimalist showroom?" "Something like that." He laughed and pulled her into his arms. "I spend a lot of time making beautiful spaces for other people. When I come home, I want it to feel real." They cooked dinner together, or rather, Zachary cooked while Aria sat on the counter and kept him company, stealing bites of vegetables and making him laugh with stories about difficult customers at the bookstore. He moved around the kitchen with confidence, and she found herself fascinated by this domestic side of him, so different from the polished CEO she had first met. After dinner, they stood at the windows looking out at the city lights. Zachary stood behind her with his arms around her waist, his chin resting on top of her head. "I could get used to this," Aria said softly. "Good, because I plan on keeping you around for a very long time." She turned in his arms to face him. "This is crazy, right? How fast this is all happening." "Probably, but I have never been one to move slowly when I know what I want." He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, the tip of her nose. "I want you, Aria Sawyer. I want morning coffee and late-night conversations and the way you laugh when you are surprised. I want to help you build your dream and let you help me remember why I fell in love with this work in the first place. I want everything." "I want that too," she whispered. "All of it." When he kissed her, it was slow and deep and full of promise. They made their way to his bedroom, and Aria felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. The next few months were a whirlwind. The Morrison building renovations began, and Aria threw herself into the project with passion and attention to detail that impressed even the contractors. Zachary was there every step of the way, not taking over but offering advice when she asked for it, helping her navigate the complicated world of construction and permits and design compromises. They fell into a rhythm. Breakfast at his place or hers, depending on whose apartment was closer to where they needed to be that day. Lunch meetings where they pretended to talk about work, but mostly just enjoyed being together. Evenings spent at the construction site or the bookstore or one of his restaurants, always finding time to connect even when their schedules were insane. Aria met his mother on a Sunday dinner, a warm woman with Zachary's eyes and a mischievous sense of humor. She welcomed Aria into her home like she had been waiting for her, and halfway through dinner, she pulled Aria aside in the kitchen. "I have never seen my son like this," she said, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "He is happy, really happy, thank you for that." "He makes me happy too," Aria said honestly. "I can tell. You are good for each other. He needs someone who challenges him, who sees past the money and the success to the man underneath. And you need someone who believes in you as much as you believe in everyone else." Zachary brought Aria's mother to visit, flying her in from Arizona, where she had retired. The two mothers bonded immediately over embarrassing childhood stories, and Aria had never been more mortified or more content. The bookstore expansion opened on a Saturday morning in late spring, almost exactly a year after that first email from the city council. The space was everything Aria had dreamed it would be and more. The main floor still held the original bookstore, but now it flowed seamlessly into a bright cafe that served coffee and pastries. Upstairs, there were reading rooms with comfortable chairs and good lighting, event spaces that could host everything from book clubs to corporate meetings, and a children's area with a reading stage and whimsical murals on the walls. The grand opening was packed. Neighbors and customers, city council members and local press all came to celebrate. Aria stood at the entrance, overwhelmed by the turnout, when she felt Zachary's hand slip into hers. "You did it," he said quietly. "This is incredible. We did it," she corrected. "I could not have done this without you." He kissed her temple. "Sure you could have, but I am glad I got to be part of it." Later, after the crowds had thinned and the sun was setting through the big windows, Zachary pulled her into one of the reading rooms. The space glowed golden in the evening light, and Aria felt a profound sense of peace. "I have something for you," Zachary said. He handed her a small wrapped package. Inside was a first edition of her favorite book, the one she had told him about on one of their late-night conversations, the one her father had read to her as a child. She stared at it, her vision blurring with tears. "Zachary, this is too much. This must have cost a fortune." "Some things are worth it." He took her hands. "Aria, this past year has been the best year of my life. You have challenged me and surprised me and made me remember why I fell in love with building things in the first place. You have made me want to be better, to do better. I love you. I am completely, ridiculously in love with you. I love you too, Aria said, laughing through her tears. So much, more than I thought I could love anyone. Then marry me. Her heart stopped. What? He pulled a ring from his pocket, a simple, elegant band with a single diamond that caught the light. Marry me, Aria. Let me spend the rest of my life making you happy and eating takeout in bookstores and arguing with you about business plans. Let me be your partner in everything. Yes, she said, not even having to think about it. Yes, absolutely yes. He slipped the ring on her finger and kissed her, and in that moment, surrounded by books and dreams and the space they had built together, Aria felt like the luckiest person alive. They were married 4 months later in a small ceremony at the bookstore, surrounded by the people they loved. Aria wore a simple dress that her mother cried over, and Zachary could not stop smiling the entire day. They exchanged vows they had written themselves, promising to support each other's dreams and challenge each other to be better and always make time for coffee and conversation. I promise to never let a day go by without telling you I love you, Zachary said, his voice rough with emotion. I promise to always be honest with you, to fight fair, and to never stop being amazed by you, Aria replied. When they kissed, the small crowd erupted in applause, and Aria felt like her heart might burst from happiness. Their honeymoon was 2 weeks in Italy, exploring old bookstores and historic buildings, blending their two passions into something new. They came back tanned and relaxed, and even more in love than when they had left. Life settled into something wonderful. Aria ran the expanded bookstore with the help of a small staff, hosting events and building the community hub her father had envisioned. Zachary continued his work, but became more selective about his projects, focusing on the ones that truly excited him rather than just the ones that would make the most money. They bought a house together in the neighborhood where they had both grown up, a fixer-upper that Zachary renovated with Aria's input on every decision. 2 years after their wedding, Aria found out she was pregnant. She told Zachary over breakfast, sliding the positive test across the table with shaking hands. He stared at it for a long moment, then picked her up and spun her around the kitchen, laughing and crying at the same time. "We are going to be parents," he said, his voice full of wonder. "We are going to be terrible at this," Aria said, but she was smiling. "Probably. But we will figure it out together." Their daughter was born on a snowy January morning, a healthy, loud little girl with Zachary's eyes and Aria's stubborn chin. They named her Eleanor after Aria's father, and from the moment Zachary held her, Aria knew he was going to be an incredible father. Those early months were exhausting and beautiful. Zachary took paternity leave, and they figured out parenting together through sleepless nights and countless diaper changes, and moments of pure joy when Eleanor smiled or reached for them, or did anything at all. "I did not know I could love something this much," Zachary said one night, holding Eleanor while she slept. "It is terrifying." "I know," Aria said, leaning against his shoulder, "but we have got each other. We can handle anything as long as we have that." When Eleanor was 6 months old, Aria brought her to the bookstore for the first time. She sat in a baby seat on the counter while Aria worked, gurgling happily at customers and immediately becoming the store mascot. Zachary stopped by during his lunch break and found them there, surrounded by books and sunlight and the gentle hum of conversation. "This is perfect," he said, taking in the scene. "This whole life we have built, it is perfect." "It is not perfect," Aria said, laughing. "Eleanor spit up on me twice this morning. I have not slept more than 4 hours at a stretch in months, and I am pretty sure there is baby food in my hair." Okay, it is not perfect, but it is ours, and I would not change a single thing. He kissed her, then Alina, then her again. I love you both more than anything in this world. We love you too, Aria said softly. Our fierce, ambitious, unexpectedly romantic CEO. As the years passed, their family grew. A son, Thomas, arrived 2 years after Alina, completing their family in a way that felt exactly right. The bookstore thrived, becoming a beloved institution in Portland. Zachary's business continued to grow, but he never lost sight of what mattered most. On their 5th wedding anniversary, they stood on the roof of the Morrison building, looking out at the city they both loved. It had become their tradition, coming here on special occasions to remember where it all started. You ever think about how different things could have been? Aria asked, leaning against the railing. If you had not withdrawn your proposal, if we had stayed competitors instead of becoming partners. Sometimes, Zachary admitted, but I do not regret it for a second. That building was just a project. You are my life. You are so sappy, Aria teased, but her eyes were bright with unshed tears. Only for you. He pulled her close, and they stood there in the evening light, two people who had started as rivals and become so much more. I was so focused on winning that bid, on beating you, that I almost missed the most important thing. You taught me that some things matter more than winning. Some things are worth changing all your plans for. You taught me that asking for help is not a weakness, and that love can come from the most unexpected places. She kissed him softly. I am so glad you were my competition. I am so glad we found each other. Me too. Every single day, me too. They had built something together that was worth more than any business deal, more than any amount of money. They had built a life full of love and laughter and books and children, and the kind of happiness that comes from truly knowing and being known by another person. Their children grew up in the bookstore, learning to read between those shelves just like their mother had. Alina inherited Aria's love of stories, often found curled up in the reading nook with a stack of books taller than she was. Thomas took after his father, constantly building things and asking questions about how everything worked. On weekends, they would take family trips to explore old buildings or visit new bookstores, blending their passions in a way that felt natural now. Zachary taught the kids about architecture and potential, helping them see the beauty in old things. Aria taught them about stories and empathy, showing them how books could transport you anywhere. One evening, when Alina was 8 and Thomas was 6, they were all in the bookstore after closing. The kids were supposed to be cleaning up the children's section, but were instead building a fort out of cushions. Zachary and Aria sat at the cafe counter, doing paperwork and stealing glances at each other the way they had since the beginning. Mom, Dad, how did you meet? Alina called out suddenly. Aria and Zachary exchanged a look, both of them smiling. We were enemies, Zachary said dramatically, making Alina giggle. You were not enemies, Thomas said, practical even at 6. We were competitors, Aria explained. We both wanted the same thing and we had to fight for it. Did you fight? Alina asked, eyes wide. Not really. We argued sometimes, but mostly we learned about each other. Aria reached for Zachary's hand, and somewhere along the way we fell in love. That is gross, Thomas declared, and Alina nodded in agreement. Zachary laughed. You will understand when you are older. Sometimes the person who challenges you the most is exactly the person you need. After the kids were in bed that night, Aria and Zachary sat on their porch, wrapped in a blanket and watching the stars. Can you believe this is our life? Aria asked. Sometimes it still feels like a dream, the best kind of dream, the kind you wake up from and realize it is real. He tightened his arms around her. I spent so many years focused on building an empire, on proving I could succeed, But none of that mattered until I met you. You showed me what success actually looks like. What does it look like? This. You, the kids, the bookstore, our home. The life we have built together. That is real success. That is what matters. Aria turned to kiss him, still feeling that same flutter in her stomach she had felt the first time, that same certainty that she was exactly where she was meant to be. Years continued to pass in the beautiful, messy way that life does. There were challenges, of course. Times when the bookstore struggled financially, and Zachary helped her strategize without taking over. Times when his business faced setbacks, and Aria reminded him of his worth beyond his work. Times when the kids were difficult or exhausting or both, and they had to remind each other to be patient and present. But through it all, they remained partners, not just in business or parenting, but in every aspect of their lives. They made decisions together, fought fair when they disagreed, and never let a day pass without expressing their love. When Alina was 16, she wrote an essay for school about her parents' love story. She interviewed them both, getting their perspectives on how they met and fell in love. Aria cried when she read it, touched by her daughter's insight and the way she described their relationship as proof that the best love stories start with two people who see each other as equals. "She gets it," Zachary said, reading over Aria's shoulder. "She understands what we have." "I hope she finds something like this someday," Aria said. "This feeling of being completely yourself with another person. She will. We will teach both of them, by example, what real partnership looks like." On their 20th wedding anniversary, they renewed their vows in the same spot where they had gotten married, surrounded by family and friends who had been part of their journey. Their children stood beside them, now young adults with lives and dreams of their own. 20 years ago, I promised to love you through everything," Zachary said, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes. "I have kept that promise, and I will keep it for the rest of my life. You are my best friend, my greatest adventure, my home." "You saw me when I felt invisible," Aria said. "You believed in me when I struggled to believe in myself. You taught me that asking for help is strength, that partnership is better than going it alone, that love can transform everything. I love you more today than I did 20 years ago, and I will love you more tomorrow than I do today." As they kissed, their children applauded and their friends cheered, and Aria thought about that Tuesday morning so many years ago when an email had changed her life. She had been so focused on competing, on winning, on proving herself. She had not realized that the real prize was not the building or the business success. It was finding someone who saw her completely, challenged her constantly, and loved her unconditionally. The Morrison building still stood in downtown Portland, a thriving bookstore and community hub that had become exactly what her father had dreamed it could be. But more than that, it was a monument to the power of collaboration, to what could happen when two people chose partnership over rivalry. Zachary had given up a major project to be with her, and in return, he had gained a life richer than any business deal could have provided. Aria had fought for her father's dream and found her own along the way, a dream bigger and more beautiful than she could have imagined. They were no longer competitors. They were partners, in every sense of the word. And as they danced at their anniversary party, surrounded by the people they loved in the space where it all began, Aria knew with absolute certainty that she would not change a single thing about their story. Sometimes the best victories come from knowing when to compete and when to collaborate. Sometimes the person standing in your way is actually the person meant to walk beside you. And sometimes, just sometimes, love finds you in the middle of a business deal and changes everything. Their story was not about winning or losing. It was about two people who found each other at exactly the right moment, who chose love over pride, who built something beautiful together. It was about partnership and passion, and the kind of love that grows stronger with every passing year. As the party continued around them, Zachary pulled Aria close and whispered in her ear, "I would do it all again, every single moment." "Me too," Aria said, her heart full to bursting. "Every single moment." And in that perfect instant, surrounded by love and laughter and the life they had created together, they both knew that their greatest success was not measured in buildings or businesses or money. It was measured in the depth of their partnership, the strength of their family, and the unwavering love they had for each other. The CEO and the bookstore owner, once rivals, now forever partners. It was the best story either of them had ever been part of, and it was far from over. Their love would continue to grow and evolve, shaped by time and experience but never diminishing. They had found in each other something rare and precious, a love that transformed competition into collaboration, challenge into support, and rivalry into the deepest, most enduring partnership. As the stars came out over Portland that night, Aria and Zachary Oakes stood together, hand in hand, ready to face whatever came next, together as they always would be, together as they were always meant to be. Their story was proof that sometimes the person you are competing against turns out to be the person you are meant to love forever. And that was the most beautiful kind of story of all.